Renee Delaney was sleeping in her apartment in Longmont, Colorado, when an intruder broke in before dawn and sexually assaulted her.
I was just trying to remember details about him for the police, but you just have to kind of shut it out. There's not a whole lot you can do. You can't really absorb what's happening to you.
The attack happened shortly after Renee's grandmother left for work around 5 a.m. Both Renee and police were convinced the perpetrator had planned this attack carefully.
He had selected me and planned it and watched to see what time my grandmother left in the mornings and came in knowing that she'd be gone.
The assault lasted for 2 hours. Even though Renee was blindfolded, she could tell her attacker was going back and forth to the bathroom to wet a towel and wipe down surfaces in the room.
I knew he was trying to not leave evidence, and I was so afraid it was gonna work.
But incredibly, despite all these precautions, Renee's rapist still left biological evidence behind.
It looked like he had no knowledge of DNA evidence, but felt certain that law enforcement could get fingerprint evidence off of a body, and that's why he wiped down Renee Delaney.
A DNA profile was generated from the biological sample in Renee's rape kit. Unfortunately, it did not match any of the DNA profiles in the Colorado State database of known criminal offenders. Renee's former boyfriends and her co-workers and fellow students willingly submitted DNA for comparison. None matched.
This case goes cold. No one is arrested. No suspects are named.
You absolutely live in fear. I mean, you have this person who's told you that they were gonna kill you, and they've certainly shown you that they're capable of it.
It wasn't until 10 years later, after Colorado officials were able to input all of the DNA samples from past criminal offenders into their statewide DNA database, that investigators finally got a break. The DNA from Renee's case turned up a hit.
This was huge. Having an investigative lead develop nearly 10 years after the sex assault, that hadn't happened before.
The DA called me and asked me if I was sitting down and proceeded to tell me that they had arrested him and that if I would check my email, there was an email with a photo.
The DNA profile from Renee Delaney's rape kit matched Rudy Gaetan, a 48-year-old auto mechanic who was married with 2 children. Coincidentally, he also lived in Renee's apartment complex.
It was shocking, upsetting to find out that it was someone that had lived right next door.
In fact, Renee had identified Gaetan as a possible suspect the night of her rape.
I don't want to say this because I'm afraid I'll be wrong, but it sounds kind of like one of the people in the next building.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, but also awful if it's not, because he's really nice to me.
But Renee always felt uncomfortable around Gaetan.
He was the creepy neighbor that always tries to talk to you.
At the time, police had no probable cause to search Gaetan's apartment or get a court-ordered sample of his DNA. But just 2 weeks after Renee's rape, Gaetan was involved in a serious car accident, and there were consequences that went well beyond broken bones.
It's almost like instant karma. Rudy Gaetan gets hooked on pain medications, and that's what ultimately lands him in prison in the Department of Corrections in Colorado, is his falsification of these prescriptions.
Since writing false prescriptions is a felony, Gaetan had to provide a DNA sample upon his release from a 3-year prison sentence.
Had Rudy Gaetan not been involved in this motor vehicle accident, chances are we would never have gotten his DNA.
Now, police looked further into his past and were shocked by what they found.
I knew who Rudy was. I was floored. I was just floored.
Police recalled that Rudy Gaetan was the man who provided incriminating evidence against Jim Meadow during Tammy Tatum's murder investigation.
He was one of the witnesses that provided information about seeing Tammy with bruises and the black eye and some of the violence that was involved between Jim and Tammy.
Gaytan knew Jim Meadow, since the two attended the same drug and alcohol rehab center. Was it possible that Gaytan was involved in Tammy's murder?